Great. Well, good morning, everybody. First of all, and especially good morning to Christiane, who is in Miami, I believe.
Yeah.
And so very early morning session for her, but it's part of the beauty of webinars is completely independent of time zones and places. So great. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. Over the next quarter of an hour or so, we're going to be telling you about a new way of looking at our consumers that we found to be necessary because there are some things about traditional market research, ethnography and innovation processes that just go a little bit against human nature. So we're pleased to be telling you about that. First of all, my name's Jonathan Gable, and I am Managing Director of Brain Juicer based in Hamburg, Germany.
Hello, and I'm Christiane Quaas. I'm Global Market Research Manager at Boehringer Ingelheim Consumer Healthcare.
Okay. So we'll be looking at the background and the objectives of a recent study that conducted with us. Looking at a new way of approaching the research required to complete the study, and then take you through the results of a case study briefly showing you how we approached it and by way of conclusion. Okay, so just skip over this slide with a background and hand over to Christiane.
Yeah, being a market researcher, we are constantly seeking truths from consumers' point of view. We have a lot of different qualitative and quantitative tools available to collect knowledge and insights, but all these tools are based on the assumption that we meet our needs regarding understanding if we interviews or ask individuals about their own do and are not really good predictors of our future behavior.
And just to make that point, our behavior in general, as most psychologists and sociologists are learning, is emotion-driven. What we do is we post-rationalize our decisions, our behavior, our actions, to put a good front on, a good facade on what we do versus our fellow human beings, because that's the way we're just brought up. Now, for traditional market research, that means that we ask questions, rational questions. Our respondents give rational answers. But really, are we getting at what really drives them? Because they are notoriously unreliable witnesses to their own behavior, like the gentleman here on the left who thinks he's very fit, but actually he looks and feels more like himself on the right-hand side. And yet, market research is still too often happy to assume that what respondents are saying is actually the truth. Just think of purchase intention. If you have a top 2 box score on purchase intention of 70%, woohoo! You know, every marketer is overjoyed, but the only problem is 70% of his or her target group is not going to buy the product. So that's just one example of why what people say and what they do are different. At the same time, it is rather difficult to look into emotional processes. We just heard about how CMAC approaches that through ethnography. Obviously, spending time with people, getting to know them over a week's time, that helps. But in many market research projects, that is just not possible. There is a way around that, though. There is good news. The good news is that we love to get together. We love to be together as human beings. We're highly social animals. sociologists and psychologists are showing more and more often that we are an excellent species at observing, interpreting, and predicting each other's behavior. And that is a huge opportunity for market research. So we can use this ability to get to deeper, richer insights, and even to arrive at more exact prognoses, for example, of how well a concept will do in market, if we don't only ask people about themselves, but also ask them about what they think other people are thinking, feeling, and what they're going to do. Okay, so this means basically replacing the dogma of me research, which says that you as a researcher must only ask me as a respondent about my preferences, aspirations, hopes, dreams, desires, and I tell you what I think about my own attitudes, etc. So we can ask people about what they think other people's opinions and attitudes and behaviors are going to be. And that is what we call moving from me research to we research. Okay. So I will hand over now to Christiane. Here comes a chart.
Yeah, I hope you can cope with this picture. I agree it's a bit extreme, but it nicely illustrates what we mean with a new way of looking at market research. You simply need to get used to it.
That's right. So what we've done is we've looked at different insights. I'm just going to click through the entire animation now to create an approach, a new toolkit of market research based on me. So starting at the bottom, mass anthropology is basically intelligent aggregation of existing data on consumer behavior from a variety of sources, which I hear CMAC, for example, also mentioning. Absolutely, we need to be looking at consumers in very, very different ways and putting all that together to make sense of it. Then the next stage would be mass ethnography, using human beings' social powers of observing each other. So the way we would approach this would be more online, give people a job, and recognize that, yes, they're not professionals, but certainly accompany their work by professional ethnographers. Then moving on, co-creation, use highly creative consumers to generate ideas, and finally, predict how those ideas would actually perform in market using the principle of the wisdom of crowds. Okay, so we're now ready to move into the case study.
Yeah, a bit about our Boehringer Consumer Healthcare team background. So our vision as a consumer healthcare team at Boehringer is to create and drive inspiring global brands for consumers. And this means we complement our product-driven approach, which is pretty obviously the nature of a pharmaceutical company, or in the nature of a pharmaceutical company, with a more and more consumer insight-driven approach. And the case I'm going to present is a 100% consumer insight-driven approach. Has been started based on mass anthropology, as Jonathan presented. So what we did in this exercise for a brand called Pharmaton, which is a multivitamin brand, was we created a team of people for very different functions, being from marketing, medicine and research and development, and very different cultural background around the world, the Pharmaton innovation team. And based on the idea of mass anthropology, the team collected together a huge amount of facts about consumer needs, wants and desires within the context of multivitamins and related benefits. In the case of the Pharmaton project, we collected something like 800 facts. The team analyzed the facts and was trying to understand what were the connections between the facts and we grouped them into so-called mega themes. Having people from different backgrounds, we ensured relevance, and the 800 fact gave us 12 mega themes turned into consumer insight areas. For example, the one behind a product called Cardioactive contained 45 facts and was called Stay Active for Longer, which is about the need of an aging population to remain physically and mentally independent as long as possible. And here you see the idea behind the point I mentioned already, Cardioactive, which was originally called Life Pill, and it was inspired by the mentioned consumer insight area, Stay Active for Longer. And the idea and the consumer insight area was turned into the concept, and the concept was then called Pharmaton Cardioactive, which is for active people who are concerned about their cardiovascular systems and are in a kind of a preventive mode. A year after the kickoff of this project, we moved from 0 product ideas being spoiled for choice. So 800 facts gave us 12 insight opportunity areas, which gave us 57 rough ideas, and finally 11 concepts, including the one I showed you for Cardioactive. The big question at that point was, 11 concepts, which one we should move forward? And so the task was to screen 11 ideas in concept format in a cost-effective way, but not only that, so we were looking for a solution which was able to prioritize our ideas very well, and was at the same time able to enrich our hypothesis about the target audience, and a solution which was able to avoid us an internal pre-screening, meaning we wanted to avoid to screen down the number of ideas internally before we go into test.
Okay, so thank you, Christiane. So the solution that we arrived at was to use mass prediction, using our human ability to predict not only our own actions, and in this case not our own actions, but others' actions. Okay, as you can see here at the tip of the pyramid. And our approach is based on the theory of the wisdom of crowds, which has been borne out in practice many, many times over. First made popular by James Surowiecki, the New Yorker author, in his book The Wisdom of Crowds, one of our favorite books, as a matter of fact, Why the Many Are Smarter Than the Few. And just to recap, the conditions for crowds being wise are, it needs to be a large crowd, it needs to be a diverse crowd, and their estimates need to be aggregated faithfully. So no upweighting of experts' opinions or downweighting of uninformed people's opinions. Every opinion is aggregated in the same way, fairly. And the way we can use this for market research is to actually predict unknown quantities. For example, which concepts of a group of 15, say, will be the most successful in the marketplace. Now, usually in market research, you need to recruit a target group. So you do very careful screening and profiling because you only want to be talking to the people who would buy your product, right? Well, yes, if you want to learn in detail things about a concept that you've worked on for a long time. But at a screening phase, what you're really trying to do is to figure out, okay, out of these 15 concepts, which 2 or 3 should I be pursuing?
Unmuted.
Honey, and I don't have the time to go for all 15.
Hi, Jonathan.
So,
sorry, Jonathan. Yeah. We've hit the 14-minute buffer. If you could finish this slide properly, and then maybe jump to the conclusions.
I sure will. Okay. Thanks, Ray. So what we do is we play a game. We ask people to sort the ideas into 2 piles, and to basically pick the extremes. Which do you think would be the winner? Which do you think would be the loser? And this is always not from their own point of view, but from the market's point of view. Which would be most successful in the marketplace? I'm just skipping through. The result now is a ranking from top to bottom of the most successful concepts, and also gives us a chance to highlight polarizers, which gives us much better differentiation than you can see in the gray line there, flat line monadic scores. So I'll hand back over to Christiane for the results.
So there was a good reason why I used cardioactive as an example in the case, because it was identified by using predictive market to be the most promising concepts amongst our 11 concepts. And predictive market results did not only suggest that cardioactive was the strongest amongst the concept in relative terms, but also in absolute terms. Closer to launch, this was again confirmed in a volumetric forecast done with basis. And if we move forward to the next slide, the launch in Spain confirmed again. So what we realized was that the objective was even overachieved when we launched the product. And we were able to compete very well against our competitive products in the market. So my final conclusion was really, or is really, like everything we try first time, the research is a challenge, and a certain amount of bravery and love of adventure is necessary, but everybody experienced the journey as a success due to the successful launch in Spain on our side at Boehringer Ingelheim.
And at the same time, this was a good validation of the we research approach, recognizing that we're not good witnesses to our own behavior, conducting mass anthropology instead of a U&A, and using powers of prediction based on the wisdom of crowds, flying in the face of convention to arrive at better results. And we look forward to your questions.